I'm Lisa Federico, and this is Inside Northwest Columbus. After spending decades in corporate marketing, I traded boardrooms for backyards because the best stories are happening right here at home. Every week, you'll meet entrepreneurs, creatives, and everyday neighbors doing extraordinary things across Worthington and Northwest Columbus. So let's jump into this week's conversation. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of Inside Northwest Columbus. I'm so excited to introduce my guests today. I have Jen Gerhard and Scott Talmage from Endeavor Brewing and Barrel and Bloom, or maybe Barrel and Bloom and Endeavor Brewing. It just depends on how we sit it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. First, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
And for clarity, it's Endeavor Brewing and Spirits is the company, and Barrel and Bloom is our newest location right here in Worthington, Linworth.
Okay, so they're still both on the sign, though, right? So
Correct.
People won't get confused. For those of you that don't know, this is an amazing concept. It's coffee shop by day and then local distillery by night. And there's such a community focus for this business. I'm just so excited to have you on and talk about it. So let's take me back to the very beginning, because this has been a brainchild of yours, Scott. But Jen, you guys started off as friends and you had this idea to combine the two. I want to hear, how did you get from A to B?
Yeah, I mean, so Jen and I met in 5th grade and have been friends since middle school, really. And we had, I co-founded Endeavor Brewing Company back in 2017.
Right, and that's located in Grandview, right?
In Grandview, 5th
Yep.
Avenue, yes.
Yep.
And we launched our spirits right as COVID was hitting at the end of 2019,
Great
2020.
timing.
Perfect timing. And we launched Barrel and Bloom in the middle of the snowstorm. So we have excellent timing for launching new things, right?
That's right.
And it's funny because Jen and I years ago had talked about a coffee shop, brew coffery sort of concept.
I like that, brew coffery.
She can talk a little more about her background, but she has been involved in digital marketing and
business consulting.
Right.
Exactly,
Yes.
for years. But her kind of dream passion would be to open up a little coffee shop.
Yeah.
And when we had the opportunity to step into the space in Linworth here, we thought it would be kind of ideal for that. And so reached out to Jen and said, hey, we have a space that might make for a really interesting combination.
So for those of you that don't know, Barrel and Bloom is right on 161 in Linworth. It is a beautiful location right next to Aardvark. Jen, tell me a little bit about the inspiration for the coffee house.
So for me, it was never about the coffee. I like coffee, but I'm not a connoisseur by any means.
Yeah.
When I had a vision to want a coffee shop in the future, it was really about having a space to bring people together, to be of service to others and to the community around us, and to really have a gathering space where we can all come together and have conversations, authentic conversations, especially in the middle age that we are all in, especially around that community. I think it's harder to get out and meet people. And so having a space where people can come and be safe and connected and present really felt important.
Yeah.
And it was more about the conversations that would be inspired. I love people, love to get to know them. I love their humanity and just their stories. And it's been really about that for me, more so than the coffee.
Yeah. And Scott, what led you to start Endeavor Brewing in Grandview, but then also in the Linworth area?
Yeah. So, wow, that's going back a ways. So really, it was a couple of us friends that got together and co-founded Endeavor, and it was all about bringing global travel experiences that we had together and trying to translate some of those into a glass.
Interesting.
And share that with our community.
Yeah.
So I like to tell the story of the best beer that I've ever had, because it was a lukewarm liter bottle of Kingfisher.
Sounds not good.
It's not good, and technically it's not good. So if you're not familiar, Kingfisher is a national Indian brand of beer. But it was just a few days before my 21st birthday. I was blessed to be able to participate in a climbing expedition over in the Himalaya in northern India.
Oh, is that all?
That's all, right? I know. And so our group had just passed this huge pass, and we'd been climbing for several weeks. And then we got all the way down, trekked out to where the footpath met the dirt road where Jeeps could get to. And we found the guy in the village with a cell phone to call them. And there was a little shop that had a refrigerator running off a generator for a couple hours a day. And they had these refilled bottles of Kingfisher. So while we were waiting for a few hours for the Jeeps to come pick us up, we grabbed some bottles, took them down by this river flowing out of the Himalaya, drank them, relaxed, had fun. And so the best beer I've ever had nothing to do with what's in the glass. It was who I was with and where I was. That's the same reason why we've all had that perfect glass of wine in that wonderful restaurant. And you see the same bottle at a store, you bring it back home, you pop it open on a Tuesday night. It doesn't taste the same.
Great point.
So it's really about the community you're with.
Yeah.
And that's what started Endeavor to begin with. And that's where Barrel and Bloom really came to fruition as well, because tying Jen into the team. And then the owner of the building is my former high school assistant wrestling coach that I ran into with my kids at Ninja City over in town. We started talking.
I know
and
it well.
Building open, and
What are the chances?
one thing led to the next.
Isn't it crazy
Pretty
that
crazy.
sometimes, right, the universe just sits everything correctly for us?
Yeah.
What a great story. And I love your point about community, because you're absolutely right. It isn't always about what's in front of us. It's about who's around us.
Correct.
And you definitely feel that when you step into Barrel and Bloom. All right. I want to talk a little bit more, though, about how did you go from climbing the Himalayas, right, to having this, like, beer with your friends,
Sure.
to having a distillery? Because, like, do you have a background in that? How did you know what to do and where to start?
Yeah, so I got into brewing. I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder.
Okay.
And so graduated from Grandview High School here in Columbus and went out to CU Boulder and got into the craft beer scene sort of in those late 90s, early 2000s, and learned how to make beer myself and really got into that on an amateur level, not really professional. But then shortly after that India trip, I actually studied at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland and got to know whiskey and really studied that and how to make that and how to put that together. And so when we launched the brewery, our thought was always to consider doing distillation. But at that time in Ohio, there was a lot of legislation going on to give small craft distillers the same rights as brewers or winemakers. And that finally went through, but not until after we were already established as a brewery.
So you started out with beer,
Correct.
and then you added the spirits. And tell me a little bit about what the local brewery offers today.
Yeah, so we are a fully functioning brewery. We brew all of our own beers in-house, and we focus on a variety of styles. So we're not just a place that has 12 different IPAs on tap, and we choose different yeasts for every beer as appropriate. We have different grain recipes. So if we're making an Irish stout, which we'll be releasing here in March before St. Paddy's,
Very
we
cool.
get actual malted barley from Ireland. If we make an Altura, our Latin lager, which is one of our big beers, we get grain from Patagonia, from the south of Chile that we bring in. So we really try to pick styles of beer that speak to a lot of people. And the goal is to find a beer for every palate, right?
Yeah.
And make choices for each one independently. And then distilled spirits is a little bit different because we're a little more bound by specific categories from a legislative perspective.
Right.
And so we do rum, both a white rum and aged rum. We do a botanical gin as well as an aged gin, our cask gin. And then we do a bourbon whiskey, a malt whiskey, and vodka as well.
Wow. And people, so not only can they drink there, obviously, but they can also purchase bottles, right, to take home with them as well?
Yes. So currently in Grandview, they can purchase the bottles, and we'll be launching that very soon at the Linworth location. We're starting just with drinks by the glass, and then very soon you'll be able to buy bottles to go.
Let's pause for just a moment. March is our home and design issue where we explore how people are rethinking the way they live in their spaces, from kitchens and outdoor living to lighting, materials, and the details that quietly change everything. On the podcast, we're sitting down with the designers, builders, and experts shaping homes right here in Northwest Columbus. If you care about craftsmanship, smart design, and making your home work beautifully for the way you live, make sure you're subscribed. You can explore the full home and design issue through the City Lifestyle link in the show notes. Awesome. All right, I got to ask you, because you know how much I love that Bischoff latte.
Yeah.
If you haven't had it, you absolutely have to try it.
Your
Where did
very
you come up
favorite.
with that? And tell me about what your process is for coming up with new coffee drinks.
I would say it was inspired because starting with Scott, bringing the Biscoff cookies
Well-
to the side of our latte plates.
That's super generous. I had simply, if you go anywhere else in the world, in Europe, and you go in
Right.
coffee, there's often just that Biscoff sitting next. So I said,
Right.
hey guys, what do we think about these? We found individually wrapped ones.
Love, love, love them.
And
Yeah.
they ran with it. I had nothing to do with making the drink or doing anything more
It's
than
so good.
providing that.
Thank you. It was really not myself either. It was our brilliant barista team. We came up with an idea of what if we make this into a latte, and they started doing testing and we found out there's a Biscoff cookie butter. So they use that in the base with a little vanilla, cinnamon, 2 shots of espresso, milk of your choice, and it is delicious.
Yeah.
It's like a graham cracker.
It's fantastic. And tell me a little bit more about, we've talked about community. And I know that you want this coffee house or coffee shop, right, to really be built around community and the people that we're with. And so to do that, you're doing lots of different events and things like that. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So far, we've done a sourdough 101 workshop. So we're bringing people together, hands-on, making sourdough starters, and that's just bringing them into the room to have conversations away from the digital screens,
Right.
and forming connections there. We have a chocolate and cheese tasting workshop coming up here in February. So really bringing in events and opportunities for people to come together without screens, being in the room with each other, being present, forming connections in the midst of being able to make something fun as well.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. And our community needs this.
Yeah, we have a lot of small private groups having events, local business groups. We
Yep.
had one just the other day.
Yeah.
Yes.
We also have, for example, my daughter is having her 6th birthday party, is a Care Bear tea party we're going to have there.
How cute.
So all kinds of fun stuff.
And so it really is a place for our community to come together and commune, but still have the benefits of Bischoff lattes and amazing coffee, as well as the brewery and distillery.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a vision too to have people come in and do presentations. We love to support the entrepreneurial community as much as remote working community, and it's a space where they can also come in and sort of develop and be seen and have their space to present and bring their people in as well. So that's something that we really have a passion for.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of stands out when you walk into Barrel and Bloom is the way that you've designed it. It really is designed for community. I love the space that's in the back that's private, but then you also have it's almost like a curtain that can divide the space for small events and things like that. How did you think through how to make that happen? To go from what the building was to where it is today, what were some things you had in mind about designing for community?
Well, that was something that we did not work with a fancy firm. We didn't go and hire someone to do this for us. We were blessed to have a window of time where we had access to the building, but before we were quite ready to pull the trigger and make stuff happen, where we just sort of spent some time in the space, personally with some friends, to get to feel the space. And then we sort of organically built that plan around the feel of the space, as opposed to try to externally apply a concept.
Yeah.
And I think you can really sense that design from within and letting the space speak to its strengths, as opposed to dictating what those should be.
Yeah, everything, the lighting, the woodwork, the plants, the way that you've decorated it, it's just gorgeous. We're so excited to have you in the community.
Thank you.
Talk a little bit about what it's like. You know, you were friends prior to putting this together, and you had, of course, Endeavor Brewing in Grandview, and still have. What's it like now to share your business with somebody else, right? And what are some of the, not challenges, but what would you say to other people maybe who are starting a new chapter of the business?
Yeah, that's a broad and very great question.
Good question,
And honestly, one that we're still figuring out. We're learning in real time.
Absolutely.
I think that an analogy that I made with our team just the other day, and really as Jennifer came on, she's just adding to our team and adding that energy and that loveliness and helping us grow, both literally and figuratively. And her strengths really complement where we weren't so good. So I think she's adding so much to our team and our ability to actually grow and have this second location. But the point I made to the team was when we first started off, it was just a small group of us, and we were on site together in one location most days. So every conversation could literally be had with every person for everything. And the bigger you get and the more people are spread out and the more locations you have, that is no longer possible. And so you really have to focus on how your team is communicating and making sure that your procedures and processes are dialed in.
Right.
And everyone is comfortable in allowing people their own space to do what they need to do. So they're not micromanaged, but we're still communicating. And that's really where Jen's strengths come into play. So she's really helping us put all of that together as we're in a second location now.
Awesome. And I want to talk a little bit about, I'll call it the transition. So coffee house from 8 to 2-ish, and then you transition to the brewery. And so are you closed for that hour, or how does that work?
That again is a process that we're learning. We've been open as the coffee house since the end of August 2025, and then we just this last weekend launched the distillery beer as all the federal and state permits came through.
Right. Congrats, by the way.
So our concept, and I think what's worked well so far in our limited experience, is that we're not going to be closed. And we will have a window of time where we have an overlap between barista staff and bartenders, where they're there at the same time and the baristas are closing down the espresso machine, putting things away, tucking things in the back that don't need to be out for during the bar time. And then the bartenders are adding a few extra bar stools and getting the liquors out and things like that. But we're also not bound by set hours for both things. So if someone gets off shift, maybe they're a third shifter and they come in at 8 a.m. and want a nightcap, we can put a little whiskey in that coffee. We can make you a mimosa on a Saturday or Sunday morning.
That's great.
And so we really
there.
need to dial in our staff and make sure everyone's cross-trained so our baristas can have some cocktailing ability and vice versa.
Yeah. What does having a small batch production operation, what does that allow you to do differently than your run-of-the-mill, go to a bar and order drinks?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of power in it, but there's also limitations, right? Consistency of individual products becomes more challenging because you're not doing them all the time. And so the more space you have, and it gets really technical, yeast management and propagation. If you're just making the same kind of beer over and over and over and over, you can really dial in that recipe and achieve great consistency. But if we're making some beers once a year, it's hard sometimes to have perfect consistency. Yeah. But then it becomes less important because it's a small batch.
Yeah.
Right? And there's kind of an individual expression for each one.
Yeah.
And there's a power that you can lean into for that too.
Where do you get the inspiration for what new flavors you're going to develop? Like you mentioned, you have a new one that'll be out for St. Patrick's Day. Mm-hmm. Where does that come from? I'm not a brewer, so I don't even know that I think like that. What does that look like?
I wish I could say we had one single answer for that, but the truth is we don't. And some of our beers have really good stories to them. So, for example, our Icelandic Saga beer, we had been talking for a while about making an unhopped beer for people that don't like IPAs. And what would that be? And I took a trip to Iceland a number of years ago. So it would have been 7 years ago when my son was 1 year old. And when we came back, we did a travel class with REI down in Grandview, where it was myself and 2 people from REI doing a slideshow on how to travel to Iceland. And for that batch, I went to our brewmaster Cameron, who's fantastic. He has a master's in brewing from Germany. And I said, hey, let's do a small batch, 1 keg worth of beer for this event. And we talked about doing unhopped beer. So make a grain recipe that has some caramel biscuit kind of flavors, and everything in Iceland had sage and star anise. So let's do that. And he said, cool. He put together a little recipe to fit that very rough vision. We sold out the entire keg basically that night and scaled it. And so tweaked the recipe a little bit, and it's been one of our best sellers year round. We kind of had to invent the name of the genre. We called it a Nordic ale. We had no idea what to call this thing.
Right.
And so we sort of invented that term to apply to something. That's a better story. And then sometimes we just say, hey, a Hefeweizen is a really delicious wheat-based summer fall beer, German style. Let's just do one of those. And we just pull traditional recipes and work with what works with our system. So sometimes it's not always a really fun, sexy story.
Right.
But sometimes it is.
Have you ever created one where you're like, wow, this is terrible, we can't offer that?
There's been a few none that I would say are just terrible technically.
Right.
But there's definitely ones that are not sellable.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, this is for a very niche audience that
Right.
10% of people are going to enjoy and 90% won't. Whereas something like that Icelandic beer, like 80 or 90% of people, if you like beer, you're probably going to like that beer.
Yeah. What did you do before that? And I know you did a lot of traveling, and so you bring all of that together, but what did you do before, and how did you get to Endeavor Brewing?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So I studied English language and literature, and I did some biology as well. And then I had my teaching degree. So I was a high school literature teacher mostly, and in Colorado. And then I taught in Santiago, Chile at a British international school. And I originally moved back to Columbus planning to do my PhD in linguistics or comp lit.
Okay.
And ended up not doing that and sort of fell into the family business. And my dad started the business a long time ago now. At the time, it was probably 30 some years before, and learned a little bit about the business world in that sense. And then there was an opportunity with Endeavor to kind of get that started, and sort of jumped on that. And yeah, just haven't looked back. I really miss teaching in a lot of ways.
But you're teaching people all the time, right? Because you're doing some amazing things with, right, custom brewing.
Sure.
But then you also lead like whiskey tastings and bourbon tastings and things like that. So I can see how you're able to mesh your former life with your current.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And teaching sounds like it's been a part of your experience from the beginning.
Absolutely. My mom was a teacher. My grandma, my aunts, there's a lot of teachers in my family.
Didn't get the magazine at home? No problem. You can read it for free by signing up for our digital issues. Just head to the link in the show notes. And hey, if you're just listening to this episode, did you know you can watch it too? Catch the full video on YouTube, link below. And Jen, your background in digital and marketing and helping local businesses, I mean, this is almost like a perfect transition. But was there something specific where you're like, you know what, I'm all in on this coffee house? Like, take me through that transition, because for many people who want to start something new, it's very scary to take that next step. So what was that like for you?
That is a good question as well. So I've been an entrepreneur, a business owner myself, self-employed for about 15 years.
Yeah.
So prior to this, I've been running a business, online business primarily, serving my clients, helping build online presence and communities, and have been doing it all virtually. There was a point where I was flying in and working with people in person, but that sort of ended during COVID.
Yeah.
And when everything went completely virtually, I was stuck on my screen for hours a day, all
Yep.
days a week.
I remember.
And was really, really ready to start working in person with people again. So I had that sort of craving already, that desire to make a shift, and I didn't know what that would look like. I wanted a coffee shop, but I had no idea it would come so quickly. I was thinking, it was pipe dream, 20 years from now kind of thing that I would do in retirement. So for me, it was an easy yes. To be all in, I think just required a lot of trust, and I definitely trust Scott and his visionary leadership. And we are so like-minded in a way of like community and the way that we want to serve and the way that we want to run the business and the team. And we are good communicators mostly. And so I feel, it's really come down to the trust.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty easy decision to make. Like I said, I was ready to make that leap and kind of got my toes wet a little bit at first. It took us about a year for me to fully transition into being here all in. I was still doing some consulting on the side, that type of thing. But yeah, it's just not a hard decision for me once it was presented.
And you've said
took
something
shape.
very important, because I truly believe this too. We are craving connection. So many times you'll go to another coffee shop, everybody is sitting there by themselves on their computers, on their phones. When you go to your place, that's not necessarily the case. Yes, you have some people working, but people go there to commune. I mean, it really is palpable when you walk in. And I love that you're building the business around connection and community. And it is a perfect transition for you because you were doing that online.
Yeah.
Are there some parallels, meaning like, are you finding that the way you build community online is the same, like you're able to apply that directly to the business?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really about helping people come together, giving them the place first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then secondly, getting to know them, helping them feel significant. When they walk in, they know that we recognize them, we see them. I try to remember names, can't always do that.
And you do. You say hi to everybody who comes in. I love that part of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think one of our core values is just to make sure that people walk in, they're greeted. We say goodbye as much as we can too, that they're never sneaking in or out unseen. And it's been funny too, watching a couple of customers. Specifically, I have a couple that I can think of instantly that came in sort of under the radar like that. Like they'll come in, sit down, have their coffee, and they leave. And I realized, like, oh my gosh, I don't even know this person's name. How do they sneak under the radar? And I know everybody's name around here lately. And so I called him out one day and said, hey, what's your name? I never knew your name. And then once he started getting called out, like we called him by name, he would start talking to us. He felt safe to have conversations, to be seen, to share some of who he is. And he brings his daughter in now, and we know her by name. And so it is just really kind of the same way. Instead of getting in Zoom and doing it there, it's actually way more expanded when we're in person together in a room, and the energy is there. Like you're saying, you can walk in, you feel that. People are like, whoa, what is this place? Yeah. Why do I love being here? And even most of our team now, our baristas specifically, and our bartenders, I think all of them have been in as customers first, and they loved being there. They were like, okay, we just want to be a part of whatever is going on here. Like, we want to work with you. And
I get it.
Most of them are graduates. They've got degrees, and they are way overqualified to be on our team.
But we have a Brown graduate as a...
Yes.
But that really
Amazing.
speaks to the culture that you're building.
Yeah.
The fact that you have people who have come in as guests and want to work there, right? That I totally get it, because that's the vibe you get when you walk in. How big of a role, right, does culture play in the people that you're choosing now that you're building another team and right? I mean, it can't be easy.
Yeah, and it's really
massive role.
Good people attract good people. Yeah. And I think it's actually not unlike the name of the place itself and how that kind of metaphorically ties together. So barrel and bloom.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about barrel, like the reason why we call it barrel is because we're going to be aging our whiskey barrels, our rum barrels, our gin barrels in the back of the building, in the space. And you're really combining ingredients, letting them mix together well, and then slowly aging and changing together over time to find a balance and a harmony, right? And you can kind of create those conditions, but you don't have full control of the outcome. And every batch will be a little bit different. And if you add certain things to that batch, it will change the outcome. And so you have to be really careful about what you're putting into it and what you're consciously trying to enhance and maybe minimize. So things like we're not a sports bar. We don't have 47 TVs on every wall, but we have a few TVs. So when it is game day in Columbus, Ohio, or a big soccer morning, we can have that on the TV and people can enjoy that as part of the community. But we don't have every single sport.
And it makes perfect. I didn't even know you had TVs because every time I'm there, right, we're talking to people. It really is community oriented. But I love that. I just love what you're building, and I just feel like we are craving connection, and you've built a place for that.
Thank you, Lisa.
Tell me about the future. Like you've just launched really within since October, right? So what does next year at this time look like? What should people expect to see from Barrel and Bloom?
Well, and we are blooming.
We're
still blooming. Yeah.
And the bloom comes from the plants that you see, but also when you brew coffee, when you add the hot water to the coffee, it blooms. It foams up and creates this beautiful growth. And so that's that's the other half of that name, if you will.
Yeah.
But as we're blooming going into 2026 and beyond, I think we're excited to be able to have more whiskeys available. So from a production capacity, we've not been able to keep up because Grandview, we're so shoehorned into our production space that we haven't been able to have enough room to age barrels. So now that we can start expanding that, it takes time because whiskeys take time.
Right.
But we can, again, offer our bourbons and our malt whiskeys and start increasing. Now that we also have a second location, we can start offering a greater variety of beer and fresher turnover for every batch.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting from a technical production perspective. And I'll let Jen talk about the community growth.
Where do we begin there?
I know.
Yeah.
It's so exciting.
And I think just speaking to the bloom, it's like having them come in. It's where they can bloom, right? As individuals, their business, their communities. And I think that's another thing that people can expect. We're going to be participating in big fundraisers, contributing to our local communities through PTA events and art events and festivals locally, but really kind of staying focused locally versus going outside of our communities for now. And that's what our main focus is for the year 2026 and beyond.
We talked a little bit about an idea that you had for like a mentorship series. I'm loving that. Tell me.
I love this, that you love it so much.
I do. I tell everybody.
It was something that was conceptualized before we even opened, really before we even started building the place. Scott and I were sort of talking about big ideas, things we could do, book clubs, whatnots. And there is a series in New York called Lectures on Tap that was come to my awareness and I thought was a really neat sort of concept, and we talked about how we could bring that into the coffee shop, the coffee concept, but bridge it into the brewery as well, in the tap room. So we sort of honed in on mugs and mentors, where they can come in and have a mug, whether it's a pint, a mug
or a Bischoff latte.
Yes, exactly, or a mug of coffee, whatever it may be. But also bringing in mentors from around the community, especially local mentors, people that are authors. Speakers, people that are giving back to the world. We have somebody coming in. You actually connected us with him, like doing 614 RAM. Something where he's supporting people with disabilities and on the spectrum and helping employ them and inspire them and grow them. So just people like that are really making a big difference in the world, and we can bring them to the forefront of the community, help them be seen, help them inspire, help them grow too.
We have so many individuals in our community that do amazing things. I get to hear these stories all day long. And so I'm so excited that you are meshing like community with the coffee shop and the brewery. It's so exciting. And I'm just so honored to have you here to be able to talk about it.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
looking forward to lots of events together. So thank you for that.
Well, Thank you.
Thank you.
Where can
Lisa.
people get more information if they want to hold an event or if they just want to come in or maybe do a small event, a tasting? Where can they get more information?
Yeah, well, events specifically, send an email to events at endeavorbrewing.com. We're on Instagram at Barrel Bloom,
Okay.
and we are also on Facebook. You can go to endeavorbrewing.com. It's the website, and both of our locations and information are on the website as well.
Okay, and we will have all of those links in the show notes, so be sure to check them out. Be sure to give a visit. I'm telling you, the coffees, I haven't had the brews yet, but I'm planning on it. I know we were talking about some drinks
you
coming
must.
up, so I will be there. But thank you so much for the work you do. Just so
Lisa.
excited to have you in the community. And thank you to our listeners who listened in today. That's going to wrap this episode of Inside Northwest Columbus, and we will see you here next week on the show. Take care.
Boxland Media. Think big.